to the first one, understanding eligibility. This is super important. And I a lot of times, Rob, I will hear people kind of confuse or conflate Social Security, retirement, survivors, and disability insurance, which is kind of what's up there on the slide right now, with supplemental security income. And so I'd like to talk just a little bit about the differences in those programs, but also just kind of remind the viewers like the kinds of things that you need to kind of keep in your head, because these things aren't, having worked for Social Security for 35 years, I know there was a lot of information, a lot of sharing, whether it was, formal publications or pushing out advertising. And I kept thinking, this is so basic. Surely people understand what their entitlements are. Since I retired last May, I can tell you about 2 stories specifically where I was working with a lady who was in her 70s, and she did not know that she can draw spouse's benefits. And to me, that was really remarkable. And then I worked with another lady who had a disabled child in care for their entire life. They'd taken care of this child. They were both receiving benefits, but the child was not. They never filed for benefits for this child, and they missed out on benefits. So I just think it's really important that, these are pretty basic, right? For retirement, you got to be 62 or older. Spouse has to be 62 or older. But some people might not know that if you have a child in care that's under 16 or disabled, that you can draw benefits. A divorced spouse, without affecting the current spouse or the wage earner, can draw, but they also have to be 62 or older. Same thing, if they had a child in care and it was the wage earner's child, they could draw. Now, there is a 10-year kind of, you got to be married to somebody for 10 years if you divorce them. And then the children, I don't think people really realize, like, Social Security pays the most benefits to children than any other program. I mean, there are children that literally are taken care of because of Social Security. So basically, if the child is under 18, or if they're still in high school, their benefit would continue until they're 19. If that child had a severe disability and they were disabled before age 22, they could continue drawing on that wage earner's record. And just a rule of thumb, I don't want to get into reduction rates and everything like that, because that's really
right.
a complex thing. But just, to kind of let everybody know, these are the kinds of things. If you think you may be eligible or entitled, you should be calling Social Security and asking them. The wage earner is entitled to their benefit, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And a rule of thumb, generally the spouse and the children, it's about 50%, depending on when they decide to take it. So disability, I'm going to hop down to that one because it's pretty similar as far as everything, except there's no age limit on when a wage earner can draw benefits. They just have to be insured. So they had to have worked and paid in at least 5 out of the last 10 years. If it's a very young wage earner, it's less than that. But again, that gets into some complicated computations. But pretty much that is the same. The definition of disability, I get asked that question a lot, Rob. It's different than like short-term or long-term disability insurance that you might have. This is actually someone who cannot work. Like, they're expected not to be able to work at least for 12 years, or that their condition is going to end in death. So these are severely disabled individuals. And then the survivors, the widow or widower, a little bit different here. You can start drawing at 60, or you can start drawing at 50 if you're disabled. The disabled part is the same definition that I just went over with the disability. So you can see there's a little age gap, which is why it's really important for people to kind of understand the entitlements and, make their planning, because Social Security has never been designed to replace all income or to fully take care of folks, right? I think financial advisors say if you're going to retire, you should have, several things in place that, replace at least 80% of your pre-retirement. So if you're somebody who's 45 and you have children that are in their 20s and you lose your husband, you're not going to be entitled for Social Security.
Right.
So I think that's important for people to know. Same thing as far as eligibility with divorced widows and children. They're still entitled. The one big difference on the survivors from the retirement and disability is that percentage is about 75%, not 50%. So if you have a child of someone who passed, and you're the mom, you're going to get 75%, your child's going to get 75%. If you're 60 or older, that's a higher percentage. Anyway, I think it's really important for people to kind of understand that these benefits come from the Social Security Trust Fund. And I will tell you that about 85 cents for every dollar that you pay taxes to Social Security goes to retirement and survivors. So the top two there, about 15 cents on the dollar goes to disability program. And I will just kind of throw this out there because it's in a very efficiently run program. Less than 1 penny goes to actually managing Social Security benefits.
Wow.
So yeah, I just, your tax dollars are taking care of 68 million people. So we can move on to SSI if you want to, Rob, unless you have any questions about.
Yeah, one thing I will mention on the disability part, it's interesting when I talk to people, they automatically think because they go on disability Social Security that they're going to get disability Medicare. Do you have any expertise on, because I tell them just because you're on disability doesn't mean you're going to get disability Medicare. Do you have any expertise and kind of speak into that and the reasons why?
Yeah, well, the reasons why might be a little bit different than how that works. I mean, it's legislation. The disability program is different than retirement and survivors as it relates to Medicare. So you have to be fully entitled to Social Security disability for a full 24 months before you're eligible for Medicare. So let's just say I became entitled to disability in February of 2023. I would be, my Part A and Part B would be effective with March 1 of 2025. So you have to be the full 24 months, and then with the 25th month, folks become eligible. I don't honestly know the reason behind that legislation and why it was written that way, but that is the rule.
Gotcha. Well, I get asked that question all the time, and I don't know the reason. Yeah, I get asked that question all the time because they automatically think because I'm disabled, I'm going to get disability Medicare, and I have to be the bearer of bad news sometimes and tell them that's not the case.